3 boys entered the compartment, and Harry recognized the middle one at once. It was the pale boy from Madame Malkin's robe shop. He was looking at Harry with a lot more interest than he'd shown back in Diagon Alley. "Is it true?" he said. "They're saying all down this train that Harry Potter's in this compartment." "So it's you, is it?" "Yes," said Harry. He was looking at the other boys. Both of them were the thickest, and it looked really mean. Standing on either side of the pale boy, they looked like bodyguards. "Oh, this is Crabbe and this is Goyle," said the pale boy carelessly, noticing that Harry was looking. "And my name's Malfoy, Draco Malfoy." Ron gave a slight cough, which might have been hiding a snigger. Draco Malfoy looked at him. "Think my name's funny, do you? No need to ask who you are. My father told me all about the Weasleys, how they have red hair, freckles, and more children than they can afford." He looked back at Harry. "You'll soon find out some wizarding families are much better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort. I can help you there." He held out his hand to shake Harry's, but Harry didn't take it. "I think I can tell who the wrong sort are for myself, thanks," he said coolly. Draco Malfoy didn't go red, but a pink tinge appeared on his pale cheeks. "I'd be careful if I were you, Potter," he said slowly. "Unless you're a bit politer, you'll go the same way as your parents. They didn't know it was good for them either. You hang around like with riffraff like the Weasleys and that Hagrid, and it will rub off on you." Both Harry and Ron stood up, and Ron's face was as red as his hair. "Say that again," he said. "Oh, are you going to fight me?" Malfoy sneered. "Unless you get out now," said Harry, more bravely than he felt because Crabbe and Goyle were a lot bigger than him or Ron. "But we don't feel like leaving, do we, boys? We haven't eaten our food, and you still seem to have some." Goyle reached towards the chocolate frogs next to Ron, and Ron leapt forward. But before he had so much as touched Goyle, Goyle let out a horrible yell. Scabbers the rat was hanging off his finger, with sharp little teeth sunk into his knuckle. Crabbe and Malfoy backed away as Goyle swung Scabbers round and around, howling, and when Scabbers finally flew off and hit the window, all 3 of them disappeared at once. Perhaps they thought there were more rats lurking among the sweets, or perhaps they'd heard footsteps, because a second later, Hermione Granger had come in. "What has been going on?" she said, looking at the sweets all over the floor, Ron picking up Scabbers by his tail. "I think he's been knocked out," Ron said. He looked closer at Scabbers. "No, I don't believe it. He's gone back to sleep." And so he had. "You've met Malfoy before?" Harry explained about their meeting in Diagon Alley. "I've heard some of his family," Ron said darkly. "They were some of the first to come back on our side after you-know-who disappeared. Said they'd been bewitched. My dad doesn't believe it. He says Malfoy's father didn't need an excuse to go over to the dark side." He turned to Hermione. "Can we help you with something?" "You'd better hurry up and put on your robes. I've just been up to the front to ask the driver, and he says we're nearly there. You haven't been fighting, have you? You'll be in trouble before you even get there." "Scabbers has been fighting, not us," Ron said, scowling at her. "Would you mind leaving us while we change?" "All right. I only came here because the people outside are behaving childishly, racing up and down the corridors, and you've got dirt on your nose, by the way. Did you know?" Ron glared at her as she left. Harry peered out of the window. It was getting dark. He could see mountains and forests under a purple sky. The train did not seem to be slowing down. He and Ron took off their jackets and pulled on their long black robes. Ron's were a bit short for him, and he could see his trainers underneath. A voice echoed through the train. "We'll be reaching Hogwarts in 5 minutes' time. Please leave your luggage on the train. It will be taken to the school separately." Harry's stomach lurched with nerves, and Ron, he saw, looked pale under his freckles. They crammed their pockets with the last of the sweets and joined the crowd thronging in the corridor. The train slowed down right and finally stopped. People pushed their way towards the door and out to a tiny, dark platform. Harry shivered in the cold night air. Then a lamp came bobbing over the heads of the students, and Harry heard a familiar voice. "First years! First years! Oh, there you are, Harry!" Hagrid's big hairy face beamed over the sea of heads. Come on, follow me. Any more first years? Mind your step. First years, follow me. Slipping and stumbling, they followed Hagrid down what seemed to be a steep, narrow path. It was so dark on either side of them that Harry thought there must be some thick trees. Nobody spoke much. Neville, the boy who kept losing his toad, sniffed once or twice. You'll get your first sight of Hogwarts in a sec, Hagrid called over their shoulder. Just round this bend here. And then there was a loud, "Oh!" The narrow path had opened, and suddenly, on the edge of the great black lake, perched atop of a high mountain on the other side, its windows sparkling in a starry sky, was a vast castle with many turrets and towers. No more than 4 to a boat, Hagrid called, pointing to a fleet of little boats sitting in the water by the shore. Harry and Ron were followed into their boat by Neville and Hermione. Everybody in? Shouted Hagrid. All right, forward. The little fleet of boats moved off at once, gliding across the lake, which was as smooth as glass. Everyone was silent, staring up at the castle overhead. It towered over them as they sailed nearer and nearer to the cliff on which it stood. Heads down, yelled Hagrid as the first boats reached the cliff. They all bent their heads, and the little boats carried them through a curtain of ivy which hid a wide opening in the cliff face. They were carried along a dark tunnel which seemed to be taking them right underneath the castle until they reached a kind of underground harbor where they clambered out onto rocks and pebbles. Oi, you there, is this your toad? Said Hagrid, who was checking boats as people climbed out of them. Trevor! Cried Neville blissfully, holding out his hands. Then they clambered up to a passageway in the rock after Hagrid's lamp, coming out onto a smooth, damp grass right in the shadow of the castle. They walked up a flight of stone steps and crowded around the huge oak front door. Everyone here? You there, you still got your toad? Hagrid raised a gigantic fist and knocked 3 times on the castle door. All right, so that is the end of chapter 6. We will read chapter 7 tomorrow. Bye, friends.